Hey, what's up, everybody? Time for another game theory video. Remember, if you like the videos, like, subscribe, comment, share, support the channel if you want to appreciate things. Today, I want to talk about some things that, of course, I've talked about before, but I want to come at it from a different angle, a different perspective, because sometimes, someone will say something and it doesn't click before, but they describe it in a way that then you're like, oh, I get it now, right? And I'm also going to talk about this in a very sort of generalized and very hopefully almost oversimplified way that might make it even better, right? So again, we're going to talk about the homogenization of games. We're going to talk about why EX moves suck in video games, and we're going to talk about why special moves need to be better, right? Why special moves? I mean, just the name, special moves. It's what makes you special, right? And this is what I want to get into because I want to show you something again here. And this is, again, it's going to seem very simple. You're going to be like, that's so obvious. But then hopefully it's going to be like, whoa, I fucking get what the fuck you're saying, okay? Let's look at the button layout here of, say, 30 years later. 30 years later, dude, Street Fighter is still 6 buttons, right? And we're going to talk shit about Dragon Ball Fighter Z here in a second, too. But I want you to imagine with me for a second, right? Okay. We got this dude right here. Don't got a name yet. Nothing, right? I want you to think in your head, what is this character's special moves? I would assume you would be like, well, what do you mean, what is his special moves? I don't know. You didn't tell me anything about him, right? Like, how do I know what the fuck his special moves are? He could be a throw character. He could be Fireball Dragon Punch character. He could be a Rekka character. He could be anything right now. You don't know anything about him, right? But guess what? Look at these buttons right here. Even 30 years later, when you look at the normal buttons in Street Fighter, just by looking at this oversimplified image, do you not already have a image of what this indescript character's moves might be for his normals? I would say that from a novice player to a more, oh God, my English is already failing me, a more veteran player, let's say, you probably have an idea, right? Because if we were to look at old school Street Fighter 2, right? We have a short. What do we think of short? We think of a fast move. Maybe a tap, 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 tap might be used to check people. It's your fast low, right? Rapidly mashing. If we were to look at the forward attack, medium kick, we would think of, oh, that's probably, he's going to have a low hitting poke that hits long and it's cancelable. Duck roundhouse, duck hard kick, we think, oh, that's the sweep of the character, right? Jab, oh, that's another kind of checking move. Blah, blah, stand strong. Oh, well, that probably can check people, probably has a lot of priority or something and also cancelable. Fierce, oh boy, probably has an uppercut kind of move. Hopefully you get what I'm getting at. There's probably already, just from this simplified image, you're like, this is probably what this move does, even though I know nothing about this character. I would say that, and I think you would probably agree, unless you just hate that I'm right all the time, that you would say what the times that it's different in when you think about it, would be like, oh, well, maybe this character has a slide attack, right? It's not a sweep, they have a slide. You know what I mean? Maybe they have a fierce that is a bit of a poking attack as well, or something like that, right? Or I would say again, and this is why I'm going to talk about homogenization of games. When we look at the normals, we would think of something like, oh, well, this character's buttons hit you when you're ducking. Because remember, in old school Street Fighter, hiya! Oh my goodness, that's okay. There we go. We can fix this. He's doing the splits. But pretend normally a lot of attacks miss, but sometimes they hit the guy. I think that's normally what you would think if you're thinking about old school Street Fighter. Some characters, the thing that distinguishes them is they have their buttons hit crouchers as well, right? Let's go to a new generation of players, right? And this is funny too, because we think even in a new generation of where people try to say like, oh, well, we don't have proximity normals now because, oh, that's just, redundant and everything like that. Even though I've talked about there's actually potential complexity and redundancy as we've gone over before, right? But even in newer school, a newer generation mindset of, let's say, a Street Fighter player, even just by looking at this simplified image of 30 years later, where we don't even have proximity normals anymore, if we look at this simple image, we're like, wow, I bet I can do what this does. I bet I know what this does, right? My short, it's probably my mashing on little kick move. Maybe it's a poke as well. My forward, guess what? If I'm standing, it's probably a poke like this that hits you when you're ducking. And if I'm ducking when I do this, it's probably my long range poke. You know what I mean? That I can cancel. If I do a roundhouse, it's probably a sweep. If I jab, you know what I mean? It's probably my move to interrupt you or something because it's going to be my fastest button for everybody all around. My stand strong is probably going to be my generic I can link off of it move, right? My fierce might be my big whap you move, counter hit, crush move, whatever, right? And, of course, there's going to be a little bit of differences to characters, right? But even by me saying that there's just a little bit of differences, like, oh, well, that character, he has a slide. Oh, that character's fierce. It's not an uppercut. It's actually a long-range poke or something like that. And, of course, I was like, well, what about Dawson? But you get what I'm saying, right? Even by looking at these simple images, we know what's going to happen, right? We have an idea. I mean, look at a game like Dragon Ball FighterZ. Light, oh, that's going to be your fast normal. Medium, oh, that's going to be my, I dash forward and I do a medium, or it's my low, or my hard punch. Oh, we all have the same uppercut, quotation mark, same uppercut. And your key special move blast is your fireball, which some characters are. That, is a little bit different. But even then, that's what I'm getting at. So, long forward, I asked you at the very beginning of this video, what is this character's special moves just by looking at him? You have no idea, right? You have no idea. But just by looking at these simplified images of what is this character's normals, instantly you're like, well, it's probably something like this, right? Isn't that kind of interesting, right? 30 years later, despite there actually being less moves, games are more fucking obvious in a sense, right? And it's even more homogenized because I said before, remember when I said that? Almost every character, guess what? Their stand medium, it's probably their poke that hits you low. Well, guess what? In old school Street Fighter 2, even with as many moves as you fucking had, dude, something that made characters different is some characters were characters that their buttons hit you when you're ducking. Is that already not homogenization right there? Despite us having less buttons, right? So when I talk about special moves too, because we don't know this character's special moves, we don't know anything about him. It's a guess, right? And when I talk about why special moves should be better, because guess what? Isn't this argument that I'm making right now kind of showing that special moves are what make you special? Special moves are what distinguish you, right? And when we think about old school games like Street Fighter 2 to really Street Fighter Alpha. And then once Street Fighter Alpha 2, we started seeing the more toned down of special moves, really. Again, it's so easy to talk shit about that game. It's like, it's almost impossible, right? It's an inevitability. It's a fucking inevitability to talk shit about Alpha 2. It really just shows where Street Fighter was going. But look at Street Fighter, again, Alpha 1. Look at a character like Adon. How fast his Jaguar kicks are. All this kind of stuff. Characters, how invincible fucking moves still were, right? How powerful and fast moves were, right? It's a clusterfuck of special moves. Of course, old school Street Fighter, a clusterfuck of special moves, super powerful moves, right? That's what makes characters special. And when I talk about why EX moves suck, because guess what? It gives you an excuse to make these special moves worse, as I've said before, right? It does. The only thing that EX moves do is it gives you a potential idea of, well, there's some meter management here, which we could already fix. We could fix the idea that you want more meter management by go watch how I would change Street Fighter. Boom, you got some meter management right there, right? And I also said how I would do EX moves in that game, right? But every character having every special move, have an EX version of the move, gives you an excuse to make said special move worse. Because there's got to be a reason to use meter for it. And so often it's generic and it's just like, oh, hey, if you use the EX version of the move, you get the original use of the move. Or, oh, maybe, hey, now it juggles. But then it's almost all across the board, isn't it? Think about that. If all of our EX moves are basically just making it so they function in the way that they used to, that's fake progression, okay? That's like fake complexity. Right? And if everyone's EX move offers the same generic benefit of, oh, well, your EX move now juggles, that's homogenization, dude. The only thing that EX moves do is they are a potential meter management thing, but you could already fix that problem of game progression by other ways, like I've talked about in videos, right? Also, when you have EX moves, I've talked about the conundrum of just fireballs specifically, because the conundrum of, say, a fighting game, again, is 2 characters, 2D plane, a background, and special and music, right? A fighting game, in a sense, is not that complicated, right? It's just a few variables. Strangely, it's very hard to do correctly, but right. But when you have EX moves, the fireball has to do something, right? And the fireball, then every character, since so many characters do have fireballs, right? A large portion of the cast do have some kind of fireball move. Characters inevitably then have a fireball that wins the fireball war, which automatically makes a character like Ryu less special, because only certain characters should be able to win the fireball war. That's homogenizing the game. That's why I said EX fireballs are a great example why not everybody should have, fireballs like that, right? Or EX moves, rather. So that's something I wanted to talk about, and again, you can watch my Street Fighter videos, how I would change Street Fighter and how I would change EX moves. EX moves are cool if they were actually special. And that's why I've talked about things like before, Ryu doesn't need a fucking donkey kick. He doesn't need the thrust kick. Thrust kick could be his EX move. You know what I mean? So again, I was thinking about a simple way that even a child, because even someone who is a novice at Street Fighter, who has very, low knowledge of video games, I think would agree with this image. Like, oh, well, what does this guy do? This indescript character, we have no idea. But even when we just look at these buttons, we already have a general idea of this is what this is going to do. Maybe some character is going to have a slide here. Maybe if it's old school Street Fighter, we're going to have pokes that hit low. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. There's more of an idea, even for this general image here, than we have the special moves. And that's why special moves need to be fast. They need to be powerful because they actually make you distinct. And that's not saying that no one, again, has no unique normals, because of course characters do. And of course I'm oversimplifying and I'm generalizing, and you can take this with a grain of salt. But even in this oversimplification, you can see it's fucking true.
Bob, why did you draw pee-pee, Bob?
What do you mean, Pikachu?
I'm just saying it's kind of empty without a pee-pee.
All right. I had a girl recently, one of my 2% female viewership. She was like, I laugh when you draw the pee-pee. She's like, keep drawing it. And I'm like, okay.
That's better. But Bob, wait, I need some boobies.
All right, okay, we'll draw some boobies.
Jeez, Bob. Those are some badungas. But Bob, you're gonna get canceled, you racist bigot. Put them together.
All right, Jesus Christ. Can't win with you guys on FGC, on NPC.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, Bob. Support rights. Oh, Jesus. Oh, God. It looks much weirder when you see it. Take it back. That's better. Remember, if you like the videos, like, subscribe, comment, share, support the channel if you want to appreciate. Thanks.
I do want to do some FGC and NBC videos, but they take so long to do. The end.